Yeah, dude. We just met a few minutes ago, and Joe runs a business here out of Cleveland, but been in Florida for a while. Just recently moved back, right?
Yeah, just, well, you know, I'm originally a Cleveland native.
Okay.
So went to St. Ignatius High School, ran track and cross country there, and then Baldwin Wallace in Kent. And then when I was about 30, I moved to California after I did Stallone's In-Stone Nutrition line back in 2004. Yeah, so I kind of...
What part of California did you end up going to then? Probably near Los Angeles, I'm assuming?
I was in Beverly Hills, actually.
Oh, man, rough life.
Yeah, so it was funny because coming from Cleveland where it's like, you know, you're more... You know, we're kind of a hard-working, blue-collar town, right?
Yeah, and, beat and bruised and battled from the weather and the elements.
Yeah, so it was like, you know, kind of like the Beverly Hillbillies going out there. All these guys are out there getting their, you know, that was the time they were getting, you know, manicures and, you know, everybody's all Versace'd out, and I'm there just like ready to build the company, you know. But no, so then after that I ended up going to Florida because I'd always had enjoyed being in Florida, and then so now I pretty much run the company out of Florida and Cleveland. So all of our manufacturing is done in Florida.
Awesome. So all American-made products then.
Yeah, everything made in the USA. There are some things that we do overseas.
Sure.
But if it's made in the USA and it goes in the body, then you know we're promoting that.
Awesome, awesome. Well, actually here for a guest, we actually got these shirts made for some of the people that are speaking for us today.
Oh, nice.
Little Guys Night podcast tank.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Appreciate that.
But you know, we support men's fitness, but also, you know, it's okay to be your #1 fan. I mean, if you're not cheering for yourself and working for yourself, then what are you doing, right?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's tell us a little bit about your company. How long, and well, I guess before we get into that, because anytime somebody owns a company that includes any kind of supplements or any kind of fitness at all, we want to know a background, right? So you mentioned Kent State, you also mentioned Baldwin Wallace. So tell us a little bit about your background and some of your credentials in the health industry.
No problem. Well, you know, I always say you got to kind of break it down both personally and professionally, right? So, you know, with anybody that's got a passion for fitness, I mean, I was a runner, middle distance runner, long distance runner growing up, ran at Ignatius, and then I ended up going to Mount Union to run track right out of high school.
Now, when you say middle distance, are you talking like miles?
I'm talking like, yeah, the
800?
800 to say the 5K.
Okay.
Then after that, you're getting into long distance.
Yeah, that's not for me.
I was more of an 800-meter runner and a miler. But so then I ended up going to Mount Union because I was thinking I wanted to run track there.
That's a first.
Somebody coming in the back door.
That sounds like they're trying to.
Back door delivery. No, so then I got into bodybuilding when I was like 18, 19 when I went to college. So that's kind of where it shifted me from running to bodybuilding.
Okay.
And that's when I was like, okay, I became fascinated with nutrition science and supplements and all that. So I spent, you know, my 20s, you know, competitive bodybuilding in the NPC. It wasn't nearly as big as it was now. Back then you'd have, you know, 10, 15 people, you know, in a show. Now you got like 20 to 30 people per class, right?
Yeah, we were just talking about that too, because obviously these posing clinics invites everybody that's, you know, new, as well as veterans, pros, etc. And every time I come to one of these, I'm amazed by the amount of people that show up.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that are, you know, and I've even talked about doing it recently, and I was like, you know, you get in that position where you start to see some results from fitness and things like that, and you're like, you know what, maybe I'll just really test myself and see what I'm capable of. So what was that process like for you? Like, what made you decide to kind of venture into the actual competing aspect?
You know, I think it was something I always wanted to do, you know, because, you know, growing up, I was a runner, so it was like, you know, bodybuilding was like two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So once I was like officially done competitive running, then I'm like, you know, let me give this a shot.
Right on.
And so that's what kind of, and it's scary at first because before any of these guys, like if you've never done, I think it's like once you bust your cherry, like once you get the first one under your belt, then it's like, okay, it really isn't that big of a deal. You know what I mean? But that first one, you know, you really want to prepare properly and you don't really know what to expect. But that's, at the time, I was like, I remember there was the Ohio Natural, actually the show that Dave Lieberman promotes. That was like the show I was gunning for. And I was going to do one and done. I'm like, I was going to do the Ohio Natural, and then
I just want to see if I could do it.
Yeah. And then it ended up, I competed in about 25 shows over 9 years from 95 to 2003. And I won the Midwest States, like my first show, and then did Dave Lieberman's, or it wasn't Lieberman's show, it was the Ohio Natural at the time. And then in my last show was the Collegiate Nationals in Go 3. And then at that point in time, I was kind of like, okay, you know what, I'm probably bodybuilding in that level, and I was kind of more getting involved on the business side of things. and the NPC really served as like a transitional opportunity to where I said, okay, everybody wants to try to make money in the business, right?
Absolutely.
And at the time, you're thinking as an athlete, this is going back in the 90s, I want to get a sponsorship, I want to get a contract. Where now, it's all a whole different world. But,
Sure.
So.
Well, and I imagine that's tough too, because obviously, we're going to talk about your brand here in a little bit, but now that it's become such a, I would say influencer space, there's so much stuff out there as far as supplements and products that are just getting pitched really every which way. Any guy with a decent body or any woman with a decent body is pitching some kind of product on Instagram to their, millions of followers that they earn just by being attractive or whatever the case might be. So getting into that space is tough, because not everybody necessarily cares like, oh, this guy actually has a background in the industry, also has a background in health. So what was that process like when you decided to make that jump?
Well, I'll tell you, it was a complete different business then than it is now.
Sure.
And of course, even to this day, you got a lot of newcomers coming in. Like you said, somebody just looks good, they think, I want to start a supplement company, or they want to promote a product. So, everything I've done, going back for the last, let's say, 25 years, has always been very science-driven. So if a product does not have science behind it, or if there's a technology that's not something that can really be substantiated by research, then I don't touch it. So I kind of have really built my core foundation of my career on bringing really, cutting-edge, science-driven products to market.
And then when it comes to getting that market out there, are you pretty specific on the people that you want representing your product? Because I'm sure you've got some brand affiliations with some different people in the community. What is that process like for you? Because it's obviously easy to pick the dude that looks the biggest, or the dude or the chick that looks the hottest. But you want somebody who's going to do it the right way, I'd assume, or what does that look like for you?
It's interesting you ask that, because typically I have never been a huge advocate of just, paying somebody to endorse a product, right? Like, I really want people, if someone's going to endorse the product, I want them to have used it and really believe in it. That's number one. Even like being here today, Mike Eli, he used my topical fat loss cream, for his last competition.
Right.
And I tell anybody, like, don't, if you're going to, you have to use the product to really see the true effectiveness and see how it works. And so I like to do most things kind of testimonial driven, to where I get people that are very passionate about the product, they love it, and then how can I create an opportunity? And so on the business side, just to kind of take a step back, what I do is really different, because with my I have a consulting company called Flexus Group. So we do everything.
What is that called?
It's called the Flexus Group.
The Flexus Group?
Yes.
Okay.
And founded in 2005. So we do everything from capital raising to raw material sourcing. I do all the formulations, or oversee the research and development for all the different formulas, which includes, capsules, powders, tablets, liquids, lotions, cosmetics, functional beverages.
Okay.
And then from there we have, your marketing, and branding, which would be, your graphic design, web development, and then taking it all the way to sales and distribution. So that's kind of the
you've built you've built an overall business model for yourself, which is tough. Like, I'm figuring it out now, is like getting, especially if you're doing it by yourself, which it sounds like you kind of have. Getting into that process of trying to put all this stuff in line, finding distributors, finding different people to work with is not easy.
It's funny, because you're zeroing in on an area, for instance, like, who's your target demographic, right? And there's really no, when you look at building any company, okay, you have to have so many things in place from on the back end with, ingredients, packaging, manufacturing. Is the supply chain there? And then, okay, are you selling online? Are you selling retail? Are you selling international? So it's kind of one of those, like, hey, well, I want to get in shape. What do you recommend I do?
Yeah.
Well, like, okay, like, what am I really trying to get, what are you trying to do? You're trying to build muscle, you're trying to lose fat. So that's where, when it comes to, that whole, the business of sports nutrition and health and wellness, it really is, a lot of it is contingent on, who you're going after. There are some brands that are just retail only brands. There are some brands that are digital. So right now, and I'm kind of an OG in terms of I understand the business very well. My colleagues do, but we're all over 50.
Right.
So now I'm having to bring in these younger guys that are in their 20s that have mastered social media and have mastered that level of messaging, because that's really what is going to set everything apart, because a lot of the new brands, they really don't have the experience. They don't have, a lot of horsepower behind their products, right? It's more just, hype and marketing, and
Sure.
people are judging a product and making a decision on what you're putting in or on your body off of a header and 3 bullet points.
You're right.
Where back in the day, you would read, a 3-page ad, or you would, do the research. So everybody wants quick fixes, and also they're just looking for, quick information to be sold. And that's why I think, as you had mentioned, there's a lot of, paralysis by analysis, because you're getting hit with so much, and you're thinking, well, I'm seeing this ad all the time on Instagram, this must be a good product.
Right.
Or this guy's in great shape. And then just because someone's in great shape doesn't mean that that product did that for them, or even their knowledge or what they did for themselves is going to help you. So sometimes it's such a quagmire of bullshit that's going on out there.
Sure.
Like you really have to just kind of break it down. So.
Well, it's funny you say that, because you're 100% right. Like one routine, if you get even just like into the physical aspect of it, like, oh, I want to lose some weight. Okay, well, the way that your body loses weight might be completely different than the way that my body loses weight, or what you look like after that weight loss could be completely different based off of the routine that you create for yourself. And when it comes to any kind of supplementing at all, what one person reacts to it could be completely different. I talk to people like when they talk about like pre-workouts. Well, if you're already drinking 8 cups of coffee a day,
right,
I don't care what pre-workout you use, it's not going to make you feel like a G when you're into the gym, because your body's already taken that caffeine and maxed it out. You've already become immune to it, right? But it's interesting when you get into these different ingredients and things like that, what's using what, who's using this. And the supplement industry is interesting in the fact that there's not a lot of oversight on what people put out there. So a lot of products, you could have 10 million followers and you decide to create your own supplement brand based off of the way that you look or what your routines and everything, and nobody even looks what's inside the product or the packaging. They just take it because they want to look like this person or that person.
Right.
You've actually got a medical background, though, when it comes to developing your products. That stuff's actually important to you.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because I'm not a doctor. However, I do have doctors that come to me for advice, and not advice that you would think, but many times their patients are coming in and they're saying, okay, well, they might have them on a certain prescription med for whatever condition, but then they're also saying, I'm taking all of these supplements. So many of these doctors I have a couple really good friends that are like, dude, what is this guy taking? What is this doing? Is there any contraindications with other medication that they're on? And I think where you were mentioning caffeine, 25 years ago, a 200 milligram caffeine dose was considered a pretty high dose of caffeine.
Sure.
That was like in your Vibrant tablet, right? Or a no-dose tablet.
Right.
Now, 200 milligrams is just like a portion of your caffeine of what you're having for breakfast. Most people are taking 2 to 3 grams of caffeine per day. We could literally hammer on this whole caffeine thing for an hour, because
of course.
It's probably the most, abused and misunderstood compound, because, even with pre-workouts, you can't, if you're taking a pre-workout, let's say, to enhance the pump, right? You want to get better blood flow going to the muscle. You want to lessen the amount of caffeine, because you're trying to increase vasodilation rather than vasoconstriction. So caffeine can cause some vasoconstriction.
Interesting.
So that's where a lot of times, like, you'll say, hey, should I take this pre-workout before, my training session? Well, are you doing cardio? Are you doing high rep? Are you doing powerlifting training? Are you doing CrossFit? So
because if you're doing a high rep, intense workout, you're gonna get short of breath quicker. If you're on too much caffeine, you're gonna, you're not gonna feel, you're gonna have so much that you're gonna be shaking at that point, right? And then on top of that, it's gonna restrict your actual workout. That's interesting. I never really thought of that aspect, but like, for instance, the pre-workout I use, they actually have a non-stimulant pre-workout versus the actual stimulated. But it's something to consider even for myself, because I've never really took that into account.
Oh yeah, No, I mean, and to give you an example, let's say you're going into the gym to do like a quick arm workout. Do you really need 300 milligrams of caffeine to go train for 30 minutes?
Right.
You know, it's like some of these pre-workouts are really designed for like ultra intense training sessions. So like most people, I mean, they should have, like you were mentioning, a couple different pre-workouts. Have a stim free, have a low stim, and maybe a high stim. So those would kind of be the 3 buckets that I would say.
Interesting.
So then contingent on your training session, say, all right, well, you know, today I'm doing cardio only. It's early in the morning. I need, you know, a little bit of an extra boost. Or if you're going in there just to do, it's a chest day, I want to get a massive pump, you're going to maybe go with, you know, a stim-free, you know, pre-workout.
It's interesting. Good way to look at it. Well, let's talk about some of the products that you brought out here today. You mentioned the topical cream, which obviously first thing I'm thinking of is like, oh man, I could get cut overnight with some cream. This is awesome, right? But that's not necessarily how it works. But for competitors like we're seeing today, this is something that they can put on maybe the night before a show or before the show. How does that work?
No, well, actually, you know, this product here called Metaboderm, which comes from from metabolism, and then derm being skin. So this is like almost a metabolic active skincare. Okay. So what this does essentially is it helps to do a number of things. It helps to improve skin firmness and elasticity. Okay. Because as you're competing, you know, obviously, you know, your skin is the largest organ in the human body, and if you've got loose skin or if you've got fat deposits on your abs, on your glutes, on your thighs, on your butt, then it's going to look really bad on stage. Sure. And so this is something that is really meant to be used not as like a quick fix last minute, optimally 6 to 8 weeks out from a show. Really? And I have many people that are, you know, use it year round just because they want to improve their health of the skin and maintain skin elasticity. But optimally, like many of the competitors here today, they're a week out, right? Everybody's looking at themselves saying, man, I still got a little bit of water in my abs. Girls are looking at their hips and thighs saying, you know what, I'm noticing a little bit of cellulite. And every woman out there is going to notice some cellulite. Even if you look and see that they look perfect, of course, you know, they're analyzing themselves under a microscope. Absolutely. So this is where the product helps to reduce subcutaneous fat deposits with clinically tested ingredients, and it also helps to take the water out of the fat cell, because, you know, water is very hydroscopic, and, you know, you have even seen people say, oh, I'm holding water today. Well, yeah, of course. You know, you could, no difference in physique, no different in body composition or body fat, but by dehydrating the fat cell, taking the water out of it, and still firming the skin with the ingredients that help to improve the skin firmness and elasticity, that's what gives that contest-winning look. So when people use this product, they say, wow, you know, I don't think I could ever compete without this again, because it's just a night and day difference. And it makes contest dieting a lot easier.
So this is something you mentioned a couple of weeks out. Is this something that's somebody who's not competing, but is like, because obviously people are going to hear this and think, oh, it's a magic lotion, right? Yeah. But like for the normal woman who is maybe dealing with cellulite or coming off of a pregnancy or something like that, is that something that this could actually still help and be beneficial to? And is it something that they would put on a little bit every day, once a week? How does that process work?
Absolutely. Many men and women could use that strictly as just a body firming cream, you know, helping to, you know, remove the stretch marks, helping to reduce the appearance of stretch marks, and also helping to improve, you know, skin firmness. So even people after losing weight, they notice that their skin is loose. And women, of course, after any type of, you know, pregnancy, just wanting to get back and look and feel their best. Yeah. You know, everybody puts something to tighten their face with facial skin, under eye creams, but we're not doing anything.
Look younger, yeah,
we're not doing anything for your body. So think of it as like an anti-aging cream for the body.
That's impressive. And where can they find this?
Right now, it's available online exclusively at metaboderm.com. Okay. And that's it's one of the brands that I have under my Pavlik Performance umbrella, because I'm bringing to market, you know, sort of niche products that I think are very unique, science-driven. Many are like diamond in the rough that you may have never heard of, that help with, you know, a number of areas for, you know, contest preparation, health, and wellness. But Metaboderm would be the site.
And you said that Mike actually used this, Mike Eli used this before his show as well. Had a good experience with it.
Yeah, no, he obviously is always in super great shape, very lean, ridiculous, you know, insane leanness. But, you know, guys use it, like Mike used it to enhance his vascularity. So, you know, because when you're able to, you know, get rid of that subcutaneous water and bring that fat level down, it really helps to enhance your vascularity even more. And that's kind of like a new thing where people are really into looking veiny, of course, and improving, you know, vascularity. So, yeah, he had a great experience with it, and that's why he's, you know, recommending all of his clients use the product.
That's awesome.
And that really ties into sort of my initial grassroots marketing for this product as I'm bringing it back to market is, I want to find, and I already have about a dozen trainers that are all working with, anywhere from 15 to 250 clients.
Sure.
And if I can get that trainer to really believe in the product and know that this isn't BS, and as a trainer, their job is to help their client get in the best possible shape they can on the day of the show. So if I got that trainer educated on that product and he feels comfortable saying, this is going to help my client, that's my initial grassroots way of marketing this. Because until you have at least, a few thousand people that are using it, then you go into, your more extended marketing.
Well, the other thing too is if you're getting to those trainers into using it, they know which of their clients are actually following the program, that are dieting correctly, that are working out correctly. So the results are going to be there if they're doing those things. I mean, obviously, this isn't something where I can have a great workout, rub this on my skin, go home and eat 2 cheeseburgers, and the next day I'm going to look lean and mean, right? So you got to make sure that people are doing the work when they're using the product, because otherwise the results are going to be skewed,
Right.
So if you don't want people that are going to be like, oh, it didn't work for me. Well, dude, you didn't stay on diet for the last 3 weeks. Like, of course, nothing was going to work for you.
No, and by no means, it's not a quick fix. It's not going to take 20 pounds of fat off you.
Right.
But if you're below, say, 10% body fat, and you're really trying to get that last, perfect look, that last 2 to 5%, this is definitely a product that'll get you there. All right, that's actually I had to bring on sort of an apprentice assistant to help me manage my social media to get me up into the modern era. As you can see, I'm like, if once I get that rolling, then I'll feel much better. It's like it's almost impossible to focus on the actual business and then learn to master social media and AI. You literally got to bring somebody on to help you with it.
The social media aspect of it is it's a business on its own, right?
Oh, yeah.
One of the things that we've talked about is trying to grow organically through YouTube and Instagram. It's hard, and you think you'd be able to count on friends and family, oh, check out my guys, for instance, our podcast, check out my buddies or my brother's podcast or my husband, and they're the least supportive or the least willing to do the work. But we've talked about our partnership here with Dehan and Mike and they've been willing to hey, check out Will's podcast, go be a guest on his podcast, and they've actually helped us grow our following substantially. So it's great when we can try and do our best to return the favor and show what they're doing here on this clinic stage. And
sure,
because whether you're a beginner or a veteran, this is just a great way to get around other people in the community because everybody in this community is supportive of each other. Whether you're just getting started or whether you've been doing it for a while. Whether it's yourself, you've got a new product out, everyone's dude, tell me about it. What can we partner on, or how can we get this out there? And it's really fantastic. So let's get back into what we were discussing, if you're able to.
Absolutely.
Joe's sitting back down with us, so fantastic.
All right, we are back.
Awesome. But Joe's he's telling us a little bit about Metaderm, or Metaboderm.
Metaboderm,
yeah. For those that are just popping in, fantastic product if you're trying to see that last little bit of cut down on some cellulite, cover up stretch marks, kind of utilize the tool to pull that last little bit out of the system, whether it's competing or just on everyday life. And you can find that on metaboderm.com, correct?
Metaboderm.com.
Awesome. And then you've got a couple of different things that we're going to get into. I'd like to actually talk next about the Pavlik performance. What do you consider this? A forearm grip or
That's called the Flex Master.
The Flex Master.
And the thing is you got to understand one thing, is that the forearms are like the calves of the upper body, right? So I always say forearms first, because this is your foundation. When people go into a gym, so let's just zero in most people that might be listening to this that are in there training chest and biceps or shoulders or back, right? When you're going into the gym, the first thing you're doing is usually training upper body.
Sure.
But you're not really focusing on how do I have my forearms or my foundation from the wrist to the elbow properly warmed up, properly oxygenated, activating all those nerves, ligaments, and muscles that are critical to maintain, a good, strong upper body workout. And so that's where I kind of came up with this when I was dealing with a near catastrophic neck injury a few years ago, to where I was basically unable to train. I was borderline paralyzed for about 6 months, couldn't move my whole left side of my body. And then I was able to get started using my grip and my forearm. And then so since I started doing that, I realized, wow, you know what, this is probably one of the most overlooked body parts
100%
that people have, because I have had pickleball players using it, baseball players, bodybuilders, MMA fighters, even like executives, or what I call like a corporate athlete.
Sure.
That you're trying to stay fit on the road.
Yeah.
And you just like, what can I do when I'm on a plane? I mean, I used to have travel. It would kill me to have to sit for 3 or 4 hours on a plane just reading a book. Now I do the Flex Master as I'm as I'm
you're sitting there.
Yeah.
Well, and here's another example too. So you talked about a lot of different people that are using this, but I went from a position where I was traveling a lot for work and I was on the road, getting in and out of my car, different locations and stuff like that, to where now I'm in an office for 8 hours a day.
Right.
Right now I lose my mind about 2-3 hours in. The gym's a mile away from me, so I'll just go up to the gym, do a little bit of cardio or something, and it gets me away from my office. But this is something, and not just for me who wants to be sitting at a desk, it gives me an example of something that I could do that's going to actually be beneficial, keep blood flowing and things like that. But this is for anybody that works from home. My mom, she works at home all the time. She's talking about, she works behind a keyboard all day. You talk about carpal tunnel, and you talk about,
Sure.
My wife who cuts hair, constantly this motion right here. This really, from what I can tell so far and just getting used to it, is, a great way to just kind of stretch, like you said, get the blood flowing. And a lot of different ways to really kind of exercise those points that we don't really exercise that much. You talk about the gym too. Not a lot of people want to train forearms, right? They don't want to take the time up in the gym to do it. But this is something where you go sit in the sauna before or after. You could be working them out a little bit there. Like you said, getting that blood flowing. And really, we know the key to building muscle is getting that blood flow in there. And this does it quickly. I've only done it a few times, but I could definitely feel it in my arms right now that it's doing something. So you said the idea of this was created based off of a neck injury that you had, where you weren't able to function at all. You mentioned to me earlier you were paralyzed for almost 6 months, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't say complete paralysis, but I had the whole left side of my body went numb because of an impingement in the C5, C6 disc. And so then from there, I was just having to look for different things that I could do while I was just pretty much having to lay horizontal in bed. And then I was able to start, slowly getting my grip strength with just using like a tennis ball and just like, a sock to get started. And then after that, I ordered a device like this off Amazon, but it was kind of a cheap device. It really didn't feel that good. And I said to myself, man, if I could do something with a higher quality coil, higher density foam, and actually make it feel good, this is something that I think a lot of people would enjoy using. And truthfully, for any fitness fanatic, this is something that you have to have in your arsenal. It may feel a little uncomfortable at first, because if you've never trained forearms, or you've never trained like really high rep, but I'll tell you, over time, you literally will not be able to go into the gym until you use this device.
Well, and you see this stuff out there now, like the grip that's been around since I was a kid. Remember, this is a lot more comfortable than that. And I think from what I can tell, it doesn't matter your overall strength, right? Like the grip strength thing, if you weren't strong enough to close it, it did absolutely nothing for you.
Right. No.
Versus this, like with little or no strength in your forearms, you're going to be able to move that, flex that, and be able to get that work in
Sure, and I'll tell you, as we, they even say that, grip strength is an indicator of mortality. So, as you lose grip strength, everything goes, goes to shit. But with this as well, you have this middle coil that you can move this up and down, so that adjusts the level of tension. So for a beginner, let's say an elderly person, all the way to an advanced power lifter, you can adjust the level of tension. And so that's where, you kind of just lock in to where what feels good. And then it's one of those things, like, I really don't even count reps. Some people will say, it's one of those, like, if we're here shooting the shit, I'll just, keep doing this until, okay, now you start to feel that soreness. You start to feel that sort of that burning sensation, because calves, abs, and forearms are all comprised of the same type of tissue that respond to high rep training. And so since we value our time, as you'd mentioned, going into the gym, do I want to spend 15 minutes of of my valuable gym time training forearms. No, man, I'm training chest, I'm training back, I'm training biceps. You want to train the bigger body parts. So that's where this is something that if you have the discipline, you keep it with you in your briefcase, in your car. You know, if you're working from home, there's no reason that you shouldn't be doing this for 30 to 60 minutes a day. So then it kind of keeps you neurally, you know, tuned up, helps to enhance that mind-muscle connection. So I was at another friend of mine, he had a podcast this morning, Clark Bartram, who talks primarily to like men over 50, that he's really trying to get them, you know, back on track from, you know, setbacks and injuries. And so even coming off an injury, this is something that you're able to train around the injury, because if you're having a sore shoulder, sore elbow, you know, by strengthening this forearm, you really do feel that, wow, when my grip strength is better and I can lock my forearms in, it allows you to handle pain more. And then from a cosmetic standpoint, you know, with bodybuilding, it's a little bit different because people want to look lean, they want to look vascular. So the only way to really get your forearms super vascular is by doing high rep training.
Sure.
And obviously, of course, having fairly low body fat. But so from that standpoint, a number of the competitors will keep this with them when they're backstage to enhance that pump.
I was going to say, it's a great way just to get a little extra pump before you head out there, for sure.
No, totally.
Yeah, and I didn't even realize that it was adjustable like that. That does make it even more unique because, like you said, coming back from an injury, if you had a broken wrist, right? Yeah. None of the things that the doctors recommend for physical therapy are fun.
Yeah.
You know, but this is something where you can get in there, get that wrist flexibility worked out on, and it doesn't matter if, you know, you're weak or if you're strong, the ability to adjust this is going to allow you to kind of make it for you, and then grow into something more without having to go and invest in more plates or more pieces or more anything else. So where can they find this right here?
This is available at pavlikperformance.com.
Okay.
And also at forearmsfirst.com.
I like Forearms First. Okay.
Forearms First, and you know, sometimes having been in this, you know, the fitness industry so long, sometimes you get a little bored and you want to change the conversation. And you know, there's plenty of ways to train chest and biceps. And you know, I just think, you know, when you look at training forearms first, anybody that does the 30-day challenge of doing this for 30 days prior to your workout, you're going to say, you know what, I'm getting a better mind-muscle connection. I'm actually having better chest workouts, better back workouts, you know, better arm workouts, because I'm now having a stronger foundation by activating the forearm. So forearms first is sort of the mantra in 2025.
I like it. So you guys check that out. Right now, there's a little area in our gym where we all sit to kind of BS for a little bit before, and I guarantee you within a month I'm going to see like 4 or 5 guys all sitting. This is it. It's great to get kind of that pump going and get started. So appreciate you bringing that on. Definitely make sure we share that, because I think that's one of those things like you talked about before the workout before the workout. You know, and anything that you could do to kind of just even get you in that mode, whether, like I said, you're sitting in the sauna or you're on your way to the gym, just to get that blood flowing, like you said, that muscle-mind connection, and kind of get you in that mode, like I'm going to work out. Because once the blood gets flowing, I don't care what part of body it is, like then you're ready to go, right? And that's what a lot of people are taking pre-workouts that we talked about and all that stuff for, and caffeine. So getting that blood flow in a minimal way that you can do anywhere is an awesome start.
You just discovered something I never thought of it, because every day I talk to somebody new that uses the device and I learn something new, or I learn a new angle of how to pitch it and how to sell it. Even like you were mentioning, your wife is a hairdresser, right? Sure. And I had, just about a week ago, I had a friend of mine that was a hairdresser, and she's like saying, wow, you know, this is really helping me because I'm spending the whole day standing up and I've got this elbow pain. But you know, when I think of this as a motivational tool, it actually is true. We all have those days when we're sitting there trying to get motivated to go to the gym, right? Maybe drinking some caffeine, drinking a pre-workout, still not feeling motivated. You're still not able to get your ass up out of the chair or off the couch. But once you're able to activate some muscle and make some level of mind-muscle connection, all of a sudden it awakens something. Hey, you know what? Now I can get into the gym and go. So that's where I think, you know, people that are really into training and really into fitness, there's a lot of like high-tech gadgets that are out there, but like this is as old school as it gets, because we remember the old school power bars that the strongman
of course.
Back in the day. This is kind of based off that same principle, but on a smaller scale to then target, you know, simply the forearms.
I tell you what, if you get something like this for feet, man,
Oh, yeah.
That might be the next big thing. If you could get something where you could do that with your calves,
oh, right.
somehow lock that up for something, because that's another aspect of, I look at it once again from sitting in the office all day. Anytime that I could do something to work something, and you talk about nobody wants to work calves.
Yeah.
But that's an awesome product, man. I'm glad you brought that along for us, for sure.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
And what else you got with us?
Well, I'll tell you, I got a couple other, like I was telling the group, I think we got over 100 competitors here today. And when Mike did the introduction, I was saying the products that I brought here today are things specifically to help the competitor. Doesn't mean that it's not going to help a wide variety of other people, but one of the things, and people I have seen historically have self-sabotaged themselves with diuretic use or water loss practices getting ready for a show.
Yeah.
So you could have all of your dieting on point, training on point, meals on point, and then the final 3 days you're thinking, well, should I use a diuretic, whether it's a prescription diuretic, an over-the-counter diuretic, or do I go into a sauna? Do I try to, sweat the last little bit of water out? I mean, what we don't understand is that our muscles are, 70% water. So often, if you go into a sauna, if you don't follow the right practices and the right duration, you're going to lose a lot of intramuscular water versus the subcutaneous water. So from a bodybuilding standpoint, when we're talking about losing water, we're talking about losing subcutaneous water, because we want
that vascular look,
water.
You want that, but you still want the muscles to be full.
You want the muscles full, and that's where a lot of people will screw up, because they'll use a diuretic, they'll go into a sauna, they'll come out and be like, oh my gosh, I look worse than before I went in.
Yeah.
Which is really crazy how bodybuilding is so, you have to be obsessed with it and be almost OCD in monitoring all these small things.
The science of it is ridiculous, and it's gotten better, right, over time. You think about how Arnold competed back in the day with none of the tools that we have to ourselves now. But the science of it is, you're right. We've had a couple of guys on where they're like, dude, I've had to eat 5 guys the night before a competition in order to get my muscles to look right. You talk about losing water weight versus the right way versus the wrong way. Well, everybody's body's different, obviously. But you're right, you could lose the water weight in a way that you do look worse. Your muscles look dehydrated, they look unhealthy, and it kind of gives you almost a saggy look,
Right.
So how does this work?
So basically, this is a natural herbal water loss agent.
Okay.
So it's called Be Lean, and this is under a brand called Be Ready, which is another company that we have under the umbrella.
Okay.
And so essentially with Be Lean, it's a safe, slow, sustainable way of losing water. So this isn't something that you're going to do 2 days out. You're going to start 7 days out.
Okay.
And you're going to slowly and gradually lose water without disrupting your electrolyte balance in the muscle.
Okay.
So the key with optimally getting your body in that peak condition when you step on stage is maintaining high level of intramuscular fullness, high level of electrolytes in the muscle while losing the subcutaneous water. So that's how a product like Be Lean, natural, slow, gradual water loss agent in conjunction with the metaboderm, is a great 1-2 punch. So you kind of got that internal and external approach to give your body that shrink wrap look that's going to, win on stage. And, most people do it. Some people do it to compete. I mean, I always did everything to win, so I try to be as meticulous as possible.
Yeah, of course. Now, we mentioned a couple of different websites. Is there somewhere where you've kind of united these things together where somebody can kind of look at all the different products that you're a part of, developed, and things like that? I want to make sure we get that out there, too.
As a matter of fact, pavlikperformance.com is the site. We just launched it earlier this year. We're continuing to make, updates daily and refine that platform. But that's really going to be where, if you want to find me and people want to learn about, the products that I've developed or have been, part of in an organization in their research and development that I feel are best in class, Pavlik Performance is where you're going to find it. Metaboderm's there, the Be Ready line is there,
awesome,
and Flexmaster's there, and then a few other cool brands that I've had an opportunity to work with and be part of.
Well, I appreciate you sitting down and talking with us and sharing some of that. They can find you on social media, Instagram?
Social media, yeah, Joe Pavlik, Joepavlik on Instagram, Joe Pavlik on X, and Joe Pavlik Performance on YouTube as well.
Awesome. So make sure you guys check them out. We'll try to put the descriptions in the actual final interview, but we appreciate you being a guest. I look forward to having you on the actual full podcast in Medina. We'll have you come into the studio, and one of the things that is really big, especially for myself being 42 years old, is any way that we can maximize our bodies and keep them healthy as long as possible, right? It's not just living as long as I can. I want to be able to run. I want to be able to jump. I want to be able to be athletic and do things, go hunt, whatever it is, long into my 60s, 70s, and even 80s. I don't want to look at it as like I'm 85 or I'm 90 years old, but I'm sitting in a couch all day and I can't function, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting, all the different things that have really come out in science over the last couple of years and the different ways that are out there to do that. And you know, something like this shows like, hey, look, you're 80 years old. You don't have to go to the gym and pump iron. You don't have to try to deadlift 400 pounds anymore.
Right.
But you can be doing some things that, you know, you can do in a limited function to at least keep you up, motivated, outdoors, things like that. And it's good to see that you're bringing some products to the table that do that.
Yeah, look forward to coming down to Medina, and we'll have to nail down some controversial topics and really dive
yes,
in.
absolutely
I know
love
you're
it.
known for pushing the envelope, no holds barred. No holds barred, because there are a lot of areas right now with, you know, biohacking and, you know, just anti-aging practices in general, HRT, medical weight loss. I mean, there's so much that people and consumers have to make a decision at what level they're gonna go. Are you gonna do HRT? Are you gonna take any other types of these therapies? So there's a lot that we're going to have to cover to educate your listeners.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny you bring that up too, and we'll talk about it more on the show, but it's even hard, like, as great as it is, there's all this information out there right now, it's also hard to find who do you trust for the information.
Completely.
Because is it the guy who's got 10 million followers, or is it the guy that's got 200 followers, but, you know, does his research before he shares anything that he does and stuff. So it'll be definitely interesting to tackle some of those topics, and I look forward to having you on, man. Thanks again.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
Fitness and fight on.